Sure, first. Okay, we're live now. Welcome everybody to Techies 15 Live. This is a 15-minute weekly live podcast hosted by us at Immigrant Techies Network. It's just our way of staying in touch with each other and talking to people who are building things, building solutions, solving problems one way or the other. It's our virtual ecosystem water cooler moment. And today, our cool person, we always bring in cool people. Our cool person today is Spencer Goldade, Director of Product Operations at ZayZoon. Welcome, Spencer. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, last week we also had somebody from ZayZoon. So it's like we're in a ZayZoon era, kind of. And so yeah, thanks for coming. And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, especially about your career journey, how you ended up in the product operations space.
Sure, yeah. So I've been working in product in some form for the last 15 to 20 years or so. And I started working in the digital space in about 2003. And that was very casual, and I was doing a lot of consulting work at the time. And that's how I built up a strong network of people that eventually led to me getting all sorts of jobs later in life, even still. And some of that was just doing like website work, but other times I was building apps and actual products and live services. Even back then, people were trying to do that. And eventually I decided to try and join the corporate world, and I joined Shaw Communications.
Mm,
And that was where I really learned that I had a uh, taste and talent for operations style work. And ever since then, I've been doing some form of product operations, and several people have tried to push me into the formal role, but I've resisted until now just because I was enjoying the other things that I was working on as well and found that I could influence product team maturity through those other avenues. But after that, I moved on to several different places and helped different organizations basically scale or mature their product and other teams, as well as how they go about doing the work that they do.
mhm,
Yeah, so I've been all over the place. I've worked, like I said, at Shaw, Benevity, another tech darling in Calgary, currently
mhm.
at ZayZoon, worked with a few other places. And yeah,
So what exactly is product operations?
that's a good question.
That's something that people ask a lot of questions about because we understand product management, we understand, separate operational roles and analytical roles. So what does that look like, especially in a startup scale-up environment?
Yeah, so ideally, I always say that product ops, you try and work to make it not necessary.
Ah,
So I'm trying to work myself out of a job, but
really?
a lot of scale ups find themselves doing some form of product ops, whether they know it or not. And the way that I describe it is that product ops is acting as a product manager of the product team. So the product team is the product.
Mhm.
So we're trying to do different things with the product team based on just like you would with a product, certain outcomes. So it could be like quality, could be speed, could be confidence in what they're building, all sorts of stuff.
Mm,
Uh, and I like to adopt, there's a main figurehead in the product ops space, Melissa Perry, and I adopt her three main pillars of product ops as my own, which are that we're always trying to enable the team with product data and insights. So that's
mhm,
where you're enabling data-driven decision making by ensuring the clean and reliable and accessible data from the product. Then there's customer and market insights. So the first one's internal, this one's more external, and we're enabling the team with customer and market insight collection so that they can drive more customer-centered product development. And then
Mm-hmm.
lastly, we're looking at the one that always gets people's back up, which is process and governance. So we're trying to streamline workflows and enhance the alignment and improve execution and
Mm-hmm.
efficiency. But when product ops comes in, it's actually usually removing things, removing chaos and things like that.
I mean, talking about getting people's back up, does your role often face off with the product manager? And is there ever confusion on who are we listening to, who's driving? We know the product manager is responsible for the roadmap, right? But based on the insight you get, maybe from customers, do you get to influence what the developers do? How does that, how's the balance, how's the dynamic like especially with the product manager?
Um, Product managers usually love whatever you're trying to do because it brings clarity and
Yeah, okay,
quality and
that's
speed.
good.
It's usually the early business owners, founders, things like that that are afraid of operations, I find. So I'm thinking
Mm,
like 2, 3 companies ago, what I started to find was just the simple term operations would scare people because they think, well, we've had to be super scrappy thus far, which means we're just highly reactive and each day is new and different and we just do whatever needs to be done,
mm,
which is great because that's like the startup mentality. But what you find as you start to scale, especially as you add people, is that you have to be much more proactive and start to think further down the road and about the ramifications of what you're doing,
mhm,
especially if your reach grows and you're uh, in the public eye. If you fail, it could have a big PR disaster, things like that. So we need to think a little bit more thoroughly about what we're doing, right?
mhm.
And how we do that is by just adding a little bit of process, which doesn't mean that we have to be super rigid or that people can't react to things. It just means that we're also being proactive.
And do you find that your role um, is more relevant based on the size of the company? So if
Yeah.
you're a newer company, you're probably not thinking about streamlining or optimizing operations yet. But for enterprise level, so what did it look like for example when you worked at Shaw, you said, when
Mhm.
it was still Shaw, and compared to maybe some of the smaller startups you've worked with, how was that role different?
Excellent question. I find the main difference is usually in the mentality of some of the leadership. So if you have a growth at all cost mentality, it's going
Mm,
to be very hard. But if you have a growth with intention mentality, it'll be very easy. And so what I mean by that is like if you're a startup and you're just starting to scale and you realize that and you're like, hey, I guess we should put some checks and balances in place and make sure we do
mm-hmm,
this properly, you're probably going to be fine. You might not need a dedicated product ops role. But if you wait and or you're surprised or the market changes really quickly and you have to pivot or surprised by something else, then you might need some type of product ops or other ops role to help you shift or mature the team really quickly. So, for example, a lot of folks are hiring product ops roles right now to help their teams learn AI. So we would be the
mm,
type that would come in and simply just
right.
educate the team or help them get access to the tools they need or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So for people, say there are people that are interested in that path, where do, for you, you kind of picked everything up along the way in your own experience, but where do people typically come from to get into product operations?
Yeah, good question. So regular ops people, for sure,
Mm-hmm,
might shift into product ops. Analytics folks as well. There's lots of them because it's a lot of it's about data driven decision making and
mm-hmm,
informing the teams and whatnot. So that makes a lot of sense. A lot of service design and related
mm-hmm,
folks as well. But also just product managers that want to help teams improve are finding that niche. And so you'll see product managers move into product ops role simply because they like to teach people or help them grow.
Mm, mm. Is it a very small niche? How big is it?
Product ops is definitely growing. Like we've got our own conferences and stuff now, so there are things like that. But yeah, it is still niche
Do you
for
have a
sure.
meetup group or
Yeah.
any local product ops meetup or anything like that?
We just joined the regular product meetups for the most
Okay.
part. But yeah, it is still a little niche. And like I say, a lot of people are doing product ops without giving it that label. They're doing
Mm-hmm.
it without knowing they're doing it, which is actually good. We want that. If you have to identify it and say, "Oh my God, we need product ops," that's actually the the bad path.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is interested in this niche, how do they upskill? How do they learn? What would you tell someone that's in a different path right now? And they are like, I'm interested in product ops. Where should they start from?
Good question. So Melissa Perry, that I mentioned earlier, her book on product operations is an excellent place to start.
What's it called?
Product operations.
Okay.
And then I also recommend for people to start looking inward at their own teams and thinking about if we were to measure our team like a product, what would we do?
Hmm.
And a lot of people's first instinct is, of course, to measure output based. How much stuff
Right.
are we making, right? That's not what we want to start to look at. So try and really frame it like what is quality? What makes us successful? What would
Hmm.
make us more engaged? Because engagement is part of product operations as well. Things like that is also a good place to start. Otherwise, one of the things that I found really helped me in my journey was, and it was just like happenstance, I didn't intentionally seek this out,
Hmm.
was one of the organizations I was at got a whole bunch of us facilitation training from an organization called Facilitation First.
Hmm.
And it was excellent because a whole bunch of what you're going to be doing as anyone trying to mature any team, not even just product ops, is facilitating.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. You did mention that when you were talking about the three major pillars, you mentioned customer insight and all of that. So does that interface with the customer success role in any way?
absolutely. I'm glad you pulled that out. So,
Mm-hmm.
a really big part of product operations, not even just as like a role, but as a function within
Mm-hmm.
the company, is building really healthy feedback loops. And what I mean by that is when your product teams realize that they're part of a greater whole and that in order to be successful, they need to interface with teams like customer success or sales or marketing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you should always be, as a product manager and product designer, looking to the sales team and saying, "Hey, what are our recent win-loss reports?" And you should be interfacing with the customer support team to be looking at what are our main customer support drivers and how do we obliterate those together? And what is the recent sentiment of conversations and what are people saying and things like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to encourage teams when they're doing like brainstorming sessions or ideation sessions to pull in people like that. Like it's not going to hurt anything if you pull in people to contribute in ways like that, and it can be really beneficial. But think of yourself as a greater whole. Think of your entire funnel and who represents that. And also think about after you make something as a product team,
Mm-hmm.
go after that. Who has to support it? If you're not thinking about that, you're not connecting with the people that have to keep it standing up, then you're probably also causing slowdown in the organization or some kind of
Right.
cost.
Right. Right. We're at time, but I have this one last question. where do you see the future of product ops, given all the predictions that we're hearing about how the role of the product team is merging. So as a developer, if you can vibe code, then you can do light product management and light design. And so where do you see all of this converging or diverging, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, good question. I actually see there's going to be a lot of converging. Coincidentally, I'm meeting with the folks at Dragon Boat later today, and I could see technology like theirs easily pulling out insights for a product team on its own to
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, you've got all these strategy items, and this is the velocity of your team, and here's how you're doing with all your OKRs. Here's what I suggest to mature your product practice. I could see that easily becoming a thing in the next few years, that it would just
Mm-hmm.
automatically analyze everything and give you helpful tips like that. Maybe we're further away than that. I don't know. But for folks like them that already have a more holistic product platform that you have everything in, I think they can easily make use of all the insights from it to give you good direction like that. And otherwise, folks are already plugging the insights from other tools into AI to gather insights as well
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and give them tips. Like Perplexity is used by our team quite a bit just to do research and pull out different tips and best practices for how they should go forward on a problem that might already be commonly known. And that's product ops.
Hmm.
Like they're using a tool to go further and faster. So that's good.
Right. Right. Awesome. We like to keep this short. And thank you. This has been really great. We could go on and on. And if people wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way?
Just on LinkedIn is great. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Spencer. Really, I really enjoyed this actually.
you
I
bet.
have a lot more things I would have wanted to ask, but 15 minutes should be 15 minutes, right? And you probably haven't had lunch too, so don't want to steal you from your lunchtime. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody that has joined us, and feel free to reach out to Spencer through LinkedIn. And if you have questions in the chat, I'm sure Spencer can still see them and respond. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.